Bien, pues tengo el gusto de comentar la presentación del profesor Philippe Weil. Él es profesor de Economía en la Universidad Libre de Bruselas. Obtuvo su PhD en Economía por la Universidad de Harvard. Previamente se graduó de la Universidad de Yale con maestría en Economía, de la Universidad de París I con maestría en Economía y París II, maestría en Derecho, su segundo grado, y en Sciences Po en París. Sciences Po. Su carrera académica lo ha llevado desde Harvard University, donde formó parte de la facultad del Departamento de Economía, a la Universidad Libre de Bruselas, donde codirigió el Centro Europeo de Investigación Avanzada de Economía y Estadística, y a Sciences Po, donde fue decano de la Escuela de Posgrado. En enero de 2011, Philippe Weil fue nombrado presidente del Observatoire François de Conjonctures Économiques. Es investigador y exdirector de programas del CEPR, miembro de su comité ejecutivo y miembro del Consejo de la Asociación Económica Europea. Especialmente desde 2012 preside el CEPR Euro Area Business Cycle Dating Committee. También ha trabajado en temas relacionados con la representación de preferencias de riesgo, la teoría del ahorro preventivo, y recientemente ha hecho incursiones en el uso del tiempo por género, por países, a través del tiempo. Y bien, pues vamos a escuchar la presentación, la exposición del profesor Weil, y luego lo tendremos conectado para la sesión de preguntas y respuestas.
Good morning to all of you. I'm Philippe Weil, and I have the pleasure of heading the Euro Area Business Cycle Dating Committee that operates under the aegis of two institutions, CEPR and EABCN, which I will tell you more about in a short while. So I'm a professor at the Sobre Brussels Schools of Economic and Management in Brussels, Belgium, at the Brussels Free University. I would like, before I proceed, to thank heartily the organizers for inviting me to participate in this conference. I should say that I very much regret not being able to participate physically in these proceedings and not to be able to be with you. I did record this PowerPoint presentation to protect against technical mishaps during replay, and if the gods of internet cooperate, I will be participating live in your proceedings after the recorded slides, so that you can ask me whatever questions you have about the makeup of our Euro. I would like to add, before I proceed, the usual disclaimer that the views I'm going to express are actually mine only, and they do not necessarily represent, although they might share them, but they might also disagree, the views of other committee members with whom I did not discuss this presentation, or of the institutions which are actually sponsors and founders, the CEPR or the EAB. I will structure my presentation as follows. I will first give you some historical background on the Euro Area Committee. Then I will get into what I think are the two possible missions of the dating committee and try to shed some light as to where the Euro Area Committee stands with regards to these two missions. Then I will explain to you why and how the European Committee was revamped in 2019, and I will offer thereafter some concluding remarks. To start with, I'm going to give you some historical background on the Euro Area Dating Committee. So the Euro Area Business Cycle Dating Committee was established by CEPR only shortly after the advent of the euro, under the impetus of my former colleague and former Director General of Research at the European Central Bank, Professor Lucrezia Reichlin. So the effort was clearly inspired by the Burns-Mitchell dating effort, It's classical dating, and what was done at the outset is to reconstitute a chronology of cycles in the pre-euro area for the 11 original euro area members. And this effort was extended actually and proceeded on for the euro area as a whole, with an increasing number of members as additional countries joined in since 1999, using solely from the time of the advent of the euro, so using solely Eurostat data. The main output, but it's not the only output, as you will see shortly, of the Euro Area Business Cycle Dating Committee work has been to produce, starting from 1970, these gray bands, or basically a time series represented by gray bands, a time series of turning points, gray bands for recession, and white bands for expansions. I would like now to turn to two missions. One of them is traditional, the other one is less traditional, of the business cycle dating committees. The first one, which is actually indeed the most common one, is that dating and setting an agreed upon independent chronology of turning points, peaks and trough, is an important way to provide answers to research questions. This was particularly acutely necessary at the time of the advent of the euro. So we wanted quickly to know, how does a euro area expansion look like typically? So this is why we did refer, even though the environment was different, because of course, before the advent of the euro, there was no euro. This is why we reconstituted data from the pre-euro area to be able to make some statements of that sort. So typically, the type of question that you want to ask, that we are asking, for instance, now, is whether, this expansion, the current expansion, is different from other previous euro area expansion. So that's one type of question. The other type of question is, of course, that we want to know. We might be interested in finding out whether euro area expansions differ from US expansions. We want to make international comparisons, not only time series comparison. So to that effect, we need actually to have an agreed upon chronology of turning points. So let you, as an example, the type of graph that we have been producing recently. These are not particularly original, but these have been important from in terms of trying to characterize what is going on in the euro area. So this graph shows you euro area recoveries, past and present, starting from 1975, and all starting at 100 being the trough of economic activity until the end of the expansion. So in gray, which is unfortunately the lowest of all these lines and graphs that you can see, is the current expansions of the euro area. And the other ones are ordered according to the order of letters in past. The orange one is the most recent, except for the current one, red, green, blue, and you will observe that unfortunately not only over time have your expansions become weaker, but the current one is definitely one of the weakest. There are reasons to this, that in particular that financial recoveries after financial crisis are known to be particularly another comparison that this maintaining of a chronology of peaks and troughs enables us to do is to check whether the current euro area expansion differs from the recent US expansion. You have to bear in mind that the euro area had a double dip recession. The US started its recovery in the second quarter of 2009. Unfortunately, the EU, the euro area, went into a second recession after the financial crisis due to the sovereign debt crisis in Europe, and the current expansion only started in the first quarter of 2013. But what you observe here in blue is the current US recovery, which has lasted longer than the current in green euro area recovery, which has been more recent. And what you observe is that up to the 20th quarter of the recovery, the US and the euro area were more or less in step. Euro area was a bit sluggish, but that's nothing new. And actually, unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse in the euro area compared to the US after the 20th quarter of the current recovery. So this is, this is what you hear about these days, about activities slowing down in the euro area recently, and you see this in these graphs. But you can assess, and thanks to this methodology, you can assess how exceptional this is from the point of view of the euro area relative to the US. What I'd like to do now is to point out that the type of comparisons, either historical or international, of recessions or expansions require to be meaningful that we have consistent time series of turning points. This is a very restrictive requirement that can be satisfied in either of two ways. Either you never change the rules that you apply to determine what a trough and a peak is, in which case this will ensure ipso facto consistency of the time series. But if you do want, for some reasons, and I'm going to come back to that, to change the rules that you use to date peaks and troughs, what you need to do to enforce consistency through time of the time series of turning points that you produce, you need to go back in time and to revisit the determination of past turning points and to find out whether you would have chosen, under the new rules that you just adopted, identical dates for turning points as the one that were chosen under the old rules. So this might sound a bit exotic, and I'm going to give you an example so that you understand what I have in mind. So I would like to turn to a case study to show you what it is that I have in mind. So the original rules that had been announced for the Euro Area Business Cycle Leading Committee, when it was founded after the advent of the euro, was that peaks and troughs were supposed to mark turning points of economic activity in most countries of the euro area. This was a time where we hoped that there would be more synchronized business cycles in the euro area, thanks to the euro. But unfortunately, after the financial crisis hit, heterogeneity in the euro area rose. And in October 2012, we realized that under these rules requiring widespread turning points shared by most countries in the euro area, that we would not be able actually to date anymore, because indeed there were no synchronous turning points for most countries. So this rise in heterogeneity led us actually to drop, starting in October 2012, the requirement that indeed a turning point be a turning point of most countries, and we decided to date solely on the basis of aggregate euro area economic activity. So whether or not the original requirement, most countries, was wise or not wise, is neither here nor there. But it did pose a problem to us, because it might have been that under so purely aggregate criterion to date your economic activity, we would have chosen prior to 2012 different turning points than the one which had been chosen when we had required that turning points be shared by most countries. So to guard against making the time series of turning points inconsistent by changing criteria, so we decided to revisit in October 2012 all previous committee decisions. So what we did is that we applied the new criteria to past data vintages to check that under the new rules we would have or not actually selected the same turning points as the one we had picked in the past under the old rule. So we were lucky, okay, because it turns out that the 2012 rule change did not actually affect the consistency of our chronology in the sense that with the new rules we would have chosen the same turning points as we had under the old rule. But this is an important experiment, it's an important task that we conducted because it didn't show, that we can compare turning points post 2012 to turning points prior to 2012. But this was an enormous amount of work. And nevertheless, it might be worthwhile putting ourselves in a situation where this effort can be conducted. If you had to go back to the 1950s, this would be problematic, but we are a new committee, the data were still there, the past vintages, and therefore we could conduct this operation at a minimum cost. And I think, as far as new committees are concerned, I think it's a possibility that they ought to keep in mind. That requires actually that we obey certain rules that I'm going to come back to later. Also, what I would like to say before I proceed is that if under the new rules we would have had to revise the series of turning points that we had published under the old rules, I personally, as a chair, I don't know if I would have been able to convince other members because this discussion was never took place because the issue did not arise. But I would have advocated as chair that we revise our past chronology. After all, this is simply a series of time series turning points, and time series get revised. And I see nothing wrong actually with that, even though the NBER inspired our practice, but the NBER, the chair of the NBER committee will be able to tell us more about this, is to eschew chronology revisions almost at any cost. So one thing to expand on this problem, one thing I would like to say is that insisting on never having to revise the turning points results, in several detrimental side effects. The first of all is that if you never want to revise the turning points, you should never revise the rules, because revising the rules might lead you to revisions. And the second thing is that if you don't ever want to revise the turning points that you have published, you are going naturally to be led to considerable delays in dating turning points because you want to guard against data revisions in the data that you are looking at, GDP or whatever. And so that actually leads to another problem, which is the lack of relevance. So from the research point of view, this is fine and dandy. We can compare current and past expansions and recessions, fine. But there is a marked sense of absence of relevance when you say, 2 years after the fact, oh yes, by the way, the recession ended 2 years ago, when in fact everybody knows about this. I would say, that the first commandment of dating is that we should maintain consistent series of turning points. Okay, this could be declined in different ways. There are several ways to obey, as I just discussed this commandment. And I would therefore say that the second commandment is that we should have no hesitation, no compunction about revising turning points time series. There are time series almost like any other. And researchers will be able to deal with these revisions as they do with other revisions. So I would hate, to obey the first commandment I would say that we should not obey the first commandment by disobeying the commandment. And the third commandment, with corollary of the second one, is that in order to be able to revise these turning point time series, we should be scrupulous in archiving past data vintages that the dating committee looked at, and we should safeguard all the documents examined by the dating committee so that if need be, we can put ourselves in the shoes of previous committees, roll back time, and try to see whether under new rules that we might choose to adopt, we would have modified the dates. We would have selected the same dates as they did. I would like to turn now to what is, in my view, the second possible mission of a dating committee, which is to provide an independent view of the current state of the cycle. So not only date 2 years after the fact turning points, but actually provide, not necessarily in complete real time, but let's say near time, could provide an assessment independent of policymakers of the current state of economic activity. So why should we want to get into this? Because I think, especially in the current populist era, that there is a deep suspicion that the public assessments of the state of the economy that are being offered to the public are tainted by the conflicts of interest. We might want to say, we are doing well, the economy is in expansion. So if you are concerned, that we need to supplement what public authorities are providing to us in terms of their assessments of the state of the economy, we could say we leave it to the press to do this. But few countries have newspapers or press which is economically literate or independent enough to provide this assessment. So I would like to claim, that maybe this second mission is in the spirit of Burns' mission and not simply a mission creep. So I went back to the 1946 NBR book, and this is what they said, that the concept of business cycles gives meaning to a host of experiences undergone by millions of men, few of whom think themselves as influenced by cyclical pressures or opportunities. But it is really about what people feel currently. I am adding currently. Okay. So, and they write, we are in truth transmuting actual experience in the workaday world into something new and strange, much as a meteorologist will transform our experience of sunshine into symbols that record solar radiation. So this notion is, like meteorology. Meteorology is not done 2 years after the fact. It's done in real time and with data limitations which are very akin to ours. So in a sense, trying to use the work of dating committees or to expand the work and the mission of dating committees to deal with this participation, intrusion in public life and making independent statements, independent assessments of the state of the economy is, in my view, probably a good idea. So I think there are many pros. First of all, I think it's important to educate the public that it's not all about 2 consecutive quarters of positive or negative growth, that you should not rush to judgment, and that indeed, should not declare victory or acknowledge defeat too fast, that there are other things going on. So I think it's useful, another pro, to help society at large assess the performance of fiscal and monetary authorities. Okay. And I think it's important from that point of view, to be timely and relevant and not wait inordinate amounts of time to perform the first task, as has been done so far. So there are cons, of course. In a sense, it is a mission drift relative to the straight dating mandate. There is also the risk, that politicians will put pressure on the dating committee not to declare that we are in recession or to declare prematurely that we have turned the corner and recovery has started. There is also the danger that we are going to slide into journalism and journalistic pronouncements. And also the risk, but it depends whether you think the risk or fact of life that you have to live with, that if you rush too much to try to comment on the current state of economic activity, you might have to revise a turning point series if you've declared prematurely. It turns out that, let's say, recession is over. So I think it's fair to say that overall the feeling has grown in the business cycle dating committee that the pros outweigh the cons. And indeed, starting in 2014, the dating committee took baby steps to comment from time to time on the state of the economy outside of peaks and troughs.
Stop.
Let me show you now the data from the point of view of June 2014.
Tenemos problemas técnicos cíclicos, no sabemos si son de tendencia.
Let me show you now the data from the point of view of June 2014 when we met, and we were looking at the recession, the second one you observe on this graph, the double-dip recession of the euro area, the gray band starting in late 2011. And in 2014, we observed that sometime in 2013, the economy started to look like, it might have emerged out of recession. So what we did, and this is the slide I showed you before, we judged that almost in real time that this was not the end of a recession, but a pause in an ongoing recession. And now let's look at the view from the dating committee in June 2015. And there you see that, in fact, we were right to call this period here recession pause, because what happened is that thereafter the economy continued its decline. So the recession, in fact, had not been terminated despite of 4 quarters of positive growth, but this was actually a very mild pause in a longer recession. So the fact that we were relatively tiny at that point, I think, did matter, because lots of voices were being raised, saying, in 2013, the economy is out of recession. We have had several quarters of positive GDP growth. I want to show you a second case study, this one from August 2017. So that's more recent. It's now a press release that we put out, actually outside indeed of turning points. So this is another comment on the state of the economy. So we wanted to point out in August 2017 that the euro area was indeed expanding, but the recovery was very slow. So people were complaining a lot about that, and we wanted to point out that this sluggishness of the recovery was at the time commensurate, and this is actually the second graph I think I showed you, with the slowness of the US recovery, considering that the US recovery had started earlier than the euro area recovery. So, this might not be a big deal, but clearly it's outside the traditional strict mandate of dating committee. But we thought, it was important to make the point and to provide these elements of reflections to. So these are the data we produced and released to the press in August 2017. We pointed out that the euro area expansion in red, which was younger, started in 2013 Q1, than the US recovery in blue that had started in 2009 Q2, but that more or less they were proceeding at a relatively similar pace, which is a point that I think was not being made very often in the press in euro area at the time. But we thought important, to deviate from our standard dating mandate and to get ourselves heard modestly, of course, by the public. So I would summarize discussions by saying, that we should not hesitate to be relevant and to comment in a somewhat timely manner on current developments. think this is important, and I think there is a social value to doing so. The considerations that I have alluded to in previous slides led in early 2019 to a refoundation of the Euro Area Dating Committee. So I will remind you that the committee had been established originally by the Centre for Economic Policy Research in London, CEPR, on its own, and starting in 2019, the committee became a joint venture of CEPR and the Euro Area Business Cycle Network. So the EABCN is an institution that provides lots of research on European business cycles, and it is sponsored by a large number among other institutions of European Central Bank. So here is the list of the sponsors. So this is actually giving a whole other dimension besides financial resources to the dating committee activities, and poses a number of challenges that I'm going to, for both opportunities and challenges that I'm going to mention now. So let me, since Mexico is thinking of setting up its own committee, be about more specific than I have been about the composition of the committee. I didn't want to speak about the composition of the old committee that was actually appointed solely by the president of CEPR. So the new committee, the new dating committee now, is appointed in a two-step process. First of all, the chair of the dating committee, yours humbly, is appointed by the president of CEPR and the scientific chair of the Euro Area Business Cycle Network. So they sit together, they pick the chair. Then, and this is done to ensure that the chair will work with committee members that he or she can work with, and also to ensure that the EABCN and CEPR have an equal say in the composition of the dating committee. The members of the dating committee are in the second step chosen by the president of CEPR, the scientific chair of the EABCN, so these are the ones who picked up the chair. So the scientific vice chair of the EABCN and the chair just nominated of the Business Cycle Dating Committee. So president and scientific chair of EABCN pick the chair. Then you add, so they sit with the chair of the dating committee that they're selected, and then we add to this team of three to establish a balance between CEPR and the EABCN. We add the scientific vice chair of the EABCN scientific committee. Okay, so this actually results in a committee whose size for the time being is not very large, but the understanding is that if the need arises, we nominate more people. So the terms have been staggered to ensure continuity, limited typically to 2 terms of 4 years, except for yours truly, who insisted that he will only serve 1 term in this new revamped committee, given that I have been head of this committee and in the previous incarnation for a while already, that it is not healthy that I continue forever. So the mission of the dating committee was officially extended. So what we had done in a bit of a haphazard way, feeling our way through an expansion of our missions to comment on the state of the Euro area. So the committee was given a new mandate to pursue its dating activities of the Troughs and Peaks, but also to launch a series of research initiatives to monitor and better understand, so this is about research, among other things, aggregate economic developments in the Euro area. So the monitoring aspect is quite important, and in practice what is going to happen is that now we are going twice yearly to produce statements on the state of the current business cycle in the Euro area. We met, the committee met electronically, the new committee, about 2 weeks ago, and we're going to issue relatively soon our statement about our view of what is going on currently in the Euro area. By the way, I should say that we never and we will not forecast, but at least we will try to be more timely as to what is going on. So on top of this, we are going to organize at the European University Institute in April 2020, not 2019, I'm sorry, a conference, a workshop to study the feasibility of computing euro area output gaps, both at the aggregate and maybe at the individual country level. And the idea is that these measures of slacks are extremely sensitive to political interference, and it might be necessary or advisable to have measures of the output gap produced by an independent body such as ours. And on top of this, it might help us, of course, assess the current state of the euro area. So there is a very important caveat that I would like to bring to your attention, is that the new institutional makeup where we are under the aegis of both CEPR and the European Cyclone Network creates a link actually between the dating committee on one end and central banks that are the sponsors of the EABCN. So a very important point was that the dating activity of the committee being carried out in total independence of the central banks. So it has been made clear that we do not answer to them, nor are they to be blamed for what we say. So there is a Chinese wall between the central banks that finance EABCN and therefore finance us on the one hand, and on top of our dating activities. So on the other hand, other activities, research initiatives in particular, will be subject to evaluation by the EABCN. But as for the dating, we are basically subject to evaluation by the research community, but not by our financial supporters and sponsors. And this is very important. So, since I mentioned the financial aspects, I think I should be clear as to what this means. So, in this CEPR and EABCN partnership, the Business Cycle Network is going to provide, actually was already providing an annual budget to the committee, pays our travel costs when we meet physically, it pays for our research assistant, it pays for our research workshops. So committee members, since I was asked the questions, are not paid. We are volunteers at this stage. And I think, I do not know what's the practice elsewhere, but I think as long as dating activities are limited to extremely infrequent dating, it is very hard to justify people being paid for activities that they carry out literally once in a blue moon, given that turning points are not very frequent. So as activities are being expanded beyond dating, strictly speaking, then it becomes more reasonable to start considering paying committee members. But for the moment being, we are just starting to move away from strict dating. I think it's fair and reasonable, that we are not being paid, and I hope that we shall be convincing enough in terms of our hyperactivity and by the amount of work that we provide that our sponsors will feel the need maybe to pay the committee members, but for them being paid. Now, I will also ask, and this is indeed an important question, whether any deliberation rules have been set for the committee. So do we vote? Does the president have, the chair have more of a voice? What happens if there is a split? Is it a majority rule? Is it a qualified majority rule? So I should say that no deliberation rules of any kind have been set for our meetings. I think this is healthy for the moment being, because I would say, and that I'm curious to hear about what is happening in other countries, that any fundamental split within the committee will probably be testimony that passing judgment either on the turning point or on the state of the economy is premature. That if we cannot agree, the facts are not staring us in the eye, and therefore we maybe should abstain. So this is, of course, a recipe in case there are strong disagreements or when there is room for really disagreement, this might lead to paralysis if we don't have a way to arbitrate except by doing nothing disagreements. So if and when this day comes, then rules must be set, then they will be set, deliberation rules will be set. But I insist it's very important that rank must not be pulled, and the chair or vice chair, also in our case of the committee, should not have any more influence than other committee members. So I think we should strive to convince rather than strive to try to impose. That's very important. So the collegial aspect, I think, is extremely important. Since I've talked enough by now, and since I hope I have answered most, if not all, of the questions that the organizers asked me to answer with a view to the establishment of a committee in Mexico, let me now turn to my concluding remarks. So the dating of turning points for sure is very important for research, but I have argued in this presentation that my view is that extending the mission of dating committee to provide a more timely assessment of the state of the economy is absolutely essential for public debate. We are, after all, social scientists, and we work both for our fellow researchers as we do in day-to-day our day-to-day functions in academia or in research departments of central banks, but we're also working, and we should not forget about that, for society at large. And I think society at large does need independent assessments of the state of the economy, because it is indeed as a function of the state of the economy that we can actually assess whether public policies, fiscal, monetary policy, are actually appropriate to the state of the cycle. And we should not leave this determination to people or institutions that can be suspected of conflicts of interests. So I thank you very much for your attention. I hope this presentation that was recorded from far away has arrived to you in good shape, and that you were able to listen to it without any too much pain. I thank again the organizers for their very kind invitation, and I was happy to share the experience of the Euro Area Committee with you. So I will be joining you live in a short while so that you can ask whatever questions I have left unanswered. So thank you very much for your time and your attention.
Good morning for us. Good afternoon for you, Professor Weil. It's
Good morning.
a pleasure having you here at the conference. I would like to say that I'm very, very pleased to comment on your excellent presentation. As you might have noticed, here in Mexico, the Euro Area Business Cycle Committee, dating committee, is quite different from other dating committees. It's what I call an advanced second generation dating committee, which is based on the work of Burns's Michael ideas and concepts, but also has expand over time. It has evolved, in fact, over almost 20 years to currently have two missions, as you saw in the presentation of Professor Weil. First, the traditional mission of dating business cycles, but also it has a second mission, which is commenting on the current state of the economy. So I would like to start this Q&A session by asking myself a question, which is the following. To setting up a brand new dating committee in a country where, for instance, the financial authorities have great expectations about the creation of a dating committee in terms of having an independent body which findings might help to implement countercyclical policy, would you recommend to embrace since the beginning the two missions, or better be much modest to start up with a more limited goal in order to give time to the committee to evolve, to gain credibility, to do the first job properly, and then add additional missions or functions on time.
Okay, so thank you for your question. This is a difficult question because in fact the question is really one of resources. So if you have resources, in my view, to carry out the two missions at the same time, I think probably you should. This is indeed, as you said, the second generation view of the dating effort. And I think, as I mentioned in my presentation, I am very reluctant or concerned if you were to carry only the first mission in a country where, as you said, there is high expectation of having an independent assessment of the state of the economy. If you were to wait an inordinate amount of times to accomplish the first mission, you would be failing to satisfy the expectations of the, as you said, financial circles, the policymakers, and so on. So, in my view, either you should do dating, but with a relatively short waiting time before you pronounce yourself as to the state of the business cycle, or you might just as well just do two things at the same time, the two missions from the outset. But as I said, this is my view. It has indeed, we have moved in the euro area towards the second mission, but in a very modest way for the moment being. So the one visible outcome of manifestation of the second mission is that we are going to publish twice yearly, as I mentioned, assessments of the state of the euro area. And the first press release will come out within a couple of weeks. So this is new. There was actually, I have to say, quite a bit of reluctance in the committee in its previous incarnation, which was CPR only, but there were some people who actually supported the idea of extending to the second mission. So it's not an obvious decision, but in the end, the demand came to a large extent precisely from the euro area business cycle networks, meaning this network of central banks. They were very eager to have our independent assessment. They felt it might help them, given the fact that what they say, because they do this effort on their own, of course, they have to know where we are. But they have the feeling that given that what they say is taken with at least a grain of salt, if not more, by the public, having an independent assessment would help them. So they want us to do it. They are concerned, as I mentioned, about have given the impression that they'll dictate what we are doing. So indeed, we have established a Chinese wall between the dating activities and the network of central banks. But so you see this demand from the, and I will stop my long answer to your short question here, right here. There is a lot of demand actually coming even from central banks, whereas the information they have, but they want it to come out from independent body.
Thank you very much. Now we have the opportunity to ask questions to Professor Weil. Somebody? First, second.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure you see me. My name is Eva Ortega. I'm part of the Business Cycle Dating Committee for the Spanish economy. And I have a question for you. Actually, I have two questions for you. One, you were arguing the benefits of being open to revise the dating. And you were giving the example of the 2015. So the dating of the draft of 2013 seen from the perspective of 2015 data. But my question is, how much revising the dating versus waiting for the revised data to make the dating final? Well, in the case of Spain, we had a similar dating point, and we decided to announce it in 2015 as provisional, And then in 2016, we decided to announce it as definitive.
Okay. So are we in disagreement or no?
No,
I'm not sure.
I mean, my experience is that the revision of the data is so large and it takes so long that I think it's, and I think we are in the safer place if we wait to date rather than date and then be open to revise maybe 2 years later.
Well, this is almost a philosophical issue. For sure, if we want a chronology that never changes, let's just wait for as long as it takes. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, we are listening.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so let me repeat. So if we don't want to ever have to change our mind, then we wait for a long time. This has been very common practice. But as I said, this leads a flavor of dark irrelevance to what we do. And, I gave this example in my slide of the so-called recession pause after 4 quarters of positive GDP growth. The press everywhere was saying, it is probably the end of the recession. We were concerned that actually small positive growth of GDP might turn out in once the data were revised into negative numbers. So we could have waited before we made any pronouncement. So we did not date, but we said that we felt at the time, from the point of view of the data that we had at our disposal at the time, we felt that this was a pause in the recession rather than a recovery. And I think we were vindicated in the end. But, this went against the grain of what was being told in the press. And I think it was important to send this message out rather than leaving the ground to people who were saying, that's it, we're out of the woods. So I have no clear answer to the question of what's best, but I do think, the public deserves or needs to be at least not informed, but it needs to get some academic light on such issues when they rise.
I would have a second question, but I can,
Okay.
I don't know. Can I?
Yes.
Professor Weil, one simple question. I'm Julio Santalla from INEGI in Mexico, the statistical office here. The European Union faces a lot of challenges, and it comes from the integration of different countries into a single monetary union. And of course, that was a huge challenge for the Business Cycle Dating Committee, as you explained, and you had to change the criteria from analyzing the behavior of multiple countries to a single regional aggregate. The question is, to what extent these regional differences are important in the new methodology? Do you get tensions from behavior at the regional level that you have to accommodate into your dating point analysis, or in the statements that you will have to make regarding economic activity in this additional mandate that you're taking?
So indeed, we changed the rules, as you alluded to actually date at the aggregate level. We typically comment also on what's going on behind the aggregate and whether heterogeneity is increasing or decreasing. But, we have been approached from several perspectives by in the countries who would like us to date at the country level also. It's not part of our mandate so far. But we have a conference on computing output gaps at the euro area level coming up in next April 2020. And part of the call for paper is asking whether we should do this on the aggregate level, also do it at the country level. So we're asking ourselves these questions, and I think it does matter for the future of the European Union. But indeed, as far as dating goes, strict dating, we are only looking right now at aggregates. And this is why we revised these rules, and I mentioned this case because I thought, important to point out that the archiving of data vintages and documents that the committees examine is actually quite important if and when you ever have to change the rules as we had to do it. It was very hard actually because we had not archived the data properly in the past, so we had to go back and reconstitute everything. So,
thank you. Our last question.
Yep.
Professor Weil, thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Gerardo Leiva from INEGI. And my question is about this double mission you mentioned, you argued about. And in particular, the second one, the idea of giving an independent view of the current state of the cycle for the Eurozone. And my question is about the content of those assessments and the tone of the communication, because my worry is, what if in these communications you say something like, "Oh, it seems like we are heading towards a recession," and then you trigger
I will interrupt you immediately. So one rule, and maybe this is not maybe certainly it's my mistake to have forgotten to mention this in the slides. So the committee does not forecast. It has never forecast. It will not forecast. So that I think is for sure. So we can only say, for instance, your area is slowing down. So things like this, and for instance, as I mentioned to you, I think in the presentation we are going to come out with a press release in a couple of weeks, and so we have to say something about the slowdown of the euro area and say something smart about it, but we are not going to say we are heading into a recession or anything. We comment on the data, the official Eurostat data that are being published. That's all. We do not forecast. But of course, this is taking us a little bit towards nowcasting for sure. But I don't think I see anything wrong about that. Okay. But for the moment being, we don't nowcast. We just take the data that the Eurostat publishes with a delay typically of a couple of quarters.
So you don't see any risk of feeding any kind of self-fulfilling prophecy?
No, because we are commenting. If you observe that, you can see it in some of the graphs that I sent you. When you observe that indeed the euro area recovery, which was more or less at par in terms of speed with the the current US recovery, which started earlier, until a few quarters, just a few 5 quarters, 6 quarters ago. And then when you observe that, this is not true anymore and that we are lagging behind, we are just being factual. We describe the facts and we point out among the masses of facts that we have at our disposal, which one we think are relevant. But again, we just look at the numbers that are being published by Eurostat.
Thank you. If we may, we have just one last question. We'll finish.
Hello, this is again Eva Ortega. Thank you for your presentation and your answers. My question was related to this last one. I fully understand the need of being more relevant and that the dating takes time. That triggered us, for example, to publish a coincident indicator, like trying to help this nowcasting, but we do not comment on it. We just publish it and we never use it for the dating, and we explicitly say so. I was surprised. My question is so very much in your spirit, we proceed. But you mentioned that you're open to even question whether the committee could even publish ALPO gaps, and that's actually a big gigantic step in my view. ALPO gaps requires looking in the future as well as these are statements that matter for policies. What's your view?
We are just investigating. We are not saying there is no decision to do it, and we are gathering researchers next April to get their feeling of whether they think it's a good idea or not. We're not going to decide this on our own. Our mission is our mission for the moment being. Our mission is not to compute output gaps, but at least to think, open vistas maybe for the future, because in the back of our mind, still when we do. At least when we comment about the current state of the economy, our view somehow of how much slackness there is around is present. So it might be nice at some point, to articulate this in a slightly more open way. So this is the main the main concern. So this is my elusive answer. I'm aware of that. But for the one being, again, we are not doing any of this stuff. We're just having a conference to think about it. That's all. And to gather the opinions from the profession to shed some light on this issue, because we don't want to do this on our own for sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Philippe Weil. We are very pleased with your presentation, with your answers, and we'll keep in touch. Okay?
Thank you very much, and thanks for this remote invitation. I wished I could have been with you. So hopefully at an opportunity soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.